Hello, welcome, Exiles. Let's talk about the Luminary. There's a lot of cool things they announced in Curse of the All Flame, but this for me was the highlight, and I want to focus in on it because this is going to be my league starter. I was planning on maybe, hey, if they don't introduce a cool enough thing, I'll do this or that. I was just wrong. Of course, they're going to introduce something ridiculously cool, which the Luminary brings back the permanent mercenary. This has two very, very strong build options to it. Number one is using the mercenary as a support for you, the player, and then playing off some pretty powerful defensive nodes like damage diversion 20% to the mercenary taunts, plus giving the mercenary aura effect, which makes the mercenaries very powerful aura effects apply a lot of benefit to you, which I think could work for builds in its own right. And then the other side of the coin is becoming the mercenaries aura bot, becoming a Merkbot. And for me on Leaguestart, I think Merkbot is going to actually straight up dominate unless they brutalize the scaling of mercenaries. There are a lot of ways you can build this thing, and I want to just go over a bit of a refresher course on some of the highlights of mercenaries. I've gone through and looked at a bunch of different VODs I've had posted from builds I made in Mercenary League just to highlight some of the interesting things you can do. And then we'll talk a little bit more specific about scaling, my plan being to be a mercenary bot, so to speak. So, to start things off with, just generic use cases for the Merkbot and why it's good on a standalone Ascendancy. Number one is you can use items like, for example, Kingmaker, 50 crit multi, 10 fortify, Coaling Strike. These are things that are multipliers or basically power improvements to your character, and part of the reason why it's an ascendancy that can work on its own right. You got minus chaos res or minus Ellie res, whatever you want, increased damage taken. You can have like a double increased minus res helmet, awaken orb together that can give your character more scaling. You could have the lucky lightning amulet, which I think I have on one of these builds here. Lucky lightning amulet. You can have things like the belt with 25% of enemies damage or 30% on columns binding. I can't remember. Converted to fire helps you with your fizz tankiness. There's things like that that are available on. Also, another thing I want to note here is you'll know this. I gave it a Doadries for +1 curse, but you could get a +1 curse corruption. So it could be a rare amulet type of thing, and you can get a curse on hit that you can add into the build. There's a lot of these things that are just giving you a few different multiplying extra scaling vectors on your character that can be added through giving the mercenary gear. Some other examples include on this character had this mercenary bot had a sap shield, which means the enemies would deal less damage if the mercenary blocked. And if you can give the mercenary a pretty high block chance sap shield, they'll block a decent amount, apply some saps. Not to mention, mercenaries come with skills. If you notice down here, there are various benefits like determination, or this mercenary was running purity of ice and discipline, or this mercenary here had zealotry and battle mage's cry, which battle mage's cry gave us a buff for like 3 base crit or something like that. There's varying useful stats that can apply to your character's power, and these are just some of the examples. Now, aside from some of the examples, mercenaries themselves each have a unique set of skills, and they obviously showcased here, hey, there's a new mercenary we added, which for all we know, this Azadin Explorer, Doriani, the Mysterious Diver, maybe this guy's really strong. We can build around him. I don't know. But the point is, when you look through their skill sets, they can have up to a 6 link, and they can have different skills of varying powers. For example, one of the best mercenaries was a kineticist. If you wanted to play a mercenary bot and you got a kineticist with a KB of clustering with some good support links, that thing will be a clear speed monster by itself, as well as being able to have a decent amount of single target. Hopefully, I'm not losing you here. So, in short, mercenary bot, just this first node, that is alone a power multiplier that says, hey, you could build around this as your baseline ascendancy. And then it has support nodes like a really nice tank node, another really nice tank node with giving aura effect, for example, discipline and purity of ice. Those auras that the Merkbot is scaling to apply to you actually are pretty strong. One thing I want to note here is depending on the auras, there was various levels of power. From my recollection, the discipline, for example, and a lot of these auras, I don't know, they were like for an 83 or mercenary, they were like a higher level. Like I don't know if they were like baseline 20 something, 27. Maybe I'm getting that confused with the Guardian relics, but the point is, I remember collectively using a very high effect discipline on a Merkbot with like a bunch of like aura effect corruptions. And I think on my necromancer character here, this Merkbot ended up giving me the difference in like 5,000 plus ES to have a very like high scaled aura effect. So there's some nice benefits to build around as a solo player. That's not what I'm planning to do to League Start though. I'm planning to play as a Merkbot where I give a cool mercenary a lot of power and I get just to chill, relax, and just run around while the Merkbot does everything as I shield charge around. Now, I think I closed out the VOD of it, unfortunately, but I was going through some of the VODs of gameplay, and the way this essentially works is your character is actually, you know what? Let me cut to it. Let me go find the VOD real quick. So here I am cutting to some footage of what this looks like. It's a situation where you do your link skill and then you just shield or charge around and the Merc shoots things as you go. This is a very early on. This is like I had just gotten my initial Merc and I was in Act 5. And it's just, as you can see, we're shield charging around and he's killing mobs as you go. And it ends up being almost an auto bomb type of play style. And this is a bow Merc. The best clear speed Merc was actually the Kineticist, the Wand Merc with KB of clustering. And you can end up getting some pretty screen wide clear while just shield charge zooming around. And on top of that, you get to be a character that builds fairly defensively. One of the best ways to scale the Mercenary's damage is via something like Flame Link, where you scale a bunch of your own HP to then give the Mercenary 5% of your HP as bonus fire damage to give them flat damage, which ends up meaning you're making yourself a tanky character and then you're scaling them up. There's also things like, let's say you want to scale up Aura Effect. Aura Effect has benefits that will make the Merc do more damage through things like haste or other damage auras, but also it gives you defensive benefit, like let's say you're running a determination or a grace. Some of these defensive auras will be more powerful for you as well. So it ends up being a playstyle that has fairly solid damage. We'll see if they've nerfed some of the scaling for mercenaries. I don't know. That could be the case, but I think they've literally clearly designed this Ascendancy to support that Merkbot playstyle that a lot of people made in Mercenary League. And so I think there's some pretty good potential here. And then on top of that, you have some other ways to scale the build that you wouldn't really have access to in previous Mercenary League. Mercenaries previously, you'd use a class like I used Inquisitor just because it had a bunch of HP regen, or use a War Cry to give you like use a lot of these ascendancies that give some like defensive power or give some protection to the mercenary. Doing like a Enduring Cry would give them regen as well as give you regen. There were things like that you would do that, yeah, they'd be somewhat useful, but ultimately it's not like your ascendancy is directly scaling your mercenary all that well. Whereas this ascendancy has, number one, it has some points that give you mercenary increased damage, which, you know, the mercenary, I don't know how much innate percent increased damage you'd have, but it's not like you had access to this stat on your normal tree. But other things like more multiplier per unique item equipped, which is kind of a bit unique there, as well as you have nodes like this, which scale your buff effect for your flame link through light radius, which is something you wouldn't have normally had access to. And that's like a lot of your base damage for your mercenary. It also gives you some really nice quality of life in an infinite link duration with a bunch of less cross, which just means you can get your character online a lot earlier with a lot of quality of life without having to manage turning your link on and off. And if your mercenary dies, it conveniently will no longer kill your character if your mercenary happens to die. So yeah, this to me has a lot of fun potential, and I'm probably going to be theory crafting over how to build it, digging through information of old Mercenary League VODs I had, and just try to see if we can come up with some cool plans. It is a Scion start, which is a bit awkward, but it's the first Scion start where you get your Ascendancy on the first lab. You don't have to wait till the second lab to have an Ascendancy point. We get the Mercenary right away. There is a guaranteed spawn in the Scepter of God, apparently, and we could have this thing up and running right away. And that just, to me, sounds like a lot of fun. We'll see how it turns out. This is what I'm playing in League Start, and I'll be making probably lots of videos on it. There will be some other videos coming from me, basically on updates on what I think about the E-Blade nerfs and some other things, potentially for like Relic of the Pact, League Start options. But yeah, that's what we're going to be doing over the next few days, preparing for the Curse of the All Flame. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. As always, thanks for watching, yourselves. Take care and peace out. Have a good one.